Good morning. We are live, or afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world while you are tuning in. I am Jen Sugarmeyer, your host of Mindset in the Morning. And that's what we're doing. We are all about talking about mindset optimally in the morning, get you ready for the entire day. The mind is where all of the magic happens, and the glass can be half full or the glass can be half empty, however you choose to look at it. And so it's so important for us to understand what control we have over our mind. And I say all the time, is life happening to you or are you happening to life? And what I mean by that, and I was reading this book yesterday called Psycho-Cybernetics. It's a mouthful. Psycho-Cybernetics. And it talked about life pushing at you. And so is life pushing you? And whatever happens, you just respond. Or do you say, is this how I want to respond? Is this the most powerful state? Is this the state of being that makes me feel good? So a lot of times something happens. We watch the stock market crash, or we watch something happen on the news, or something within our own life. Our boss does something, our kids do something, our spouse does something, whatever it may be, our friends, something happens. Maybe it's just even a driver on the road, and we get angry or we get annoyed or frustrated or whatever it may be. And this is where I would say pause. We talked about pausing on the show yesterday. And is that the state of being that you want to be in? And so when we talk, when I say pushing, is the world pushing? The world is going to push those negative feelings on you, but that's for you to say, hold on, does this serve me? So I'm going to take a pause there and continue to introduce myself. Jen Sugarmeyer with Mindset in the Morning. We are live 5 days a week, Monday through Friday at 6 a.m. Central Standard Time, but it's YouTube, so you're welcome to join anytime that you would like. And we are here to become intentional about our minds and our lives and our days so that we're getting the optimum out of our life. I don't know about you, but it scares me to be 80 years old and to think back, wow, I wish I had led a happier life, or wow, I wish I had done different things. And I feel very blessed and very fortunate that where I'm at in my life, that because I spent 35 years where life was pushing on me and I didn't know any different. I just thought that's the way it was. That's how I had to feel. That's who I had to be. And it was after 35 years that I realized the power of the mind. And so I'm really grateful that I got to tap into that at that age. I think for some people, it takes them a whole lot longer, but I think it doesn't matter really how long it takes us to get there, as long as we get there. And so that's what we talk about here on Mindset in the Morning. So I would appreciate if you would subscribe. This is more than just a show that I want you, that I'd like for you to tune into. It's a movement. It's a movement of having mental maintenance in the morning. Whew, those were a lot of M's, doing some mental maintenance in the morning. but that's what this is all about. And so this week we've been talking about how to deal with a crisis, because as we turned on the news on Sunday, we saw the takeover in Afghanistan, and that triggered a lot of emotions, a lot of feelings. And so just how to deal with crisis when it comes up. And crisis can be anything. I mentioned yesterday a friend of mine whose boss was leaving. And for her, that was a crisis. And in her world, yeah, because we all create our own reality. Our perceptions become our reality. So if it is a crisis for you, then it's a crisis for you. But why is it that not everyone, when their boss leaves, sees a crisis? And it's the perception that we choose to have. Not everyone sees the glass as half full. Not everyone sees an event as something big or traumatic. And how can there be so many different opinions? And it's because we can wire ourselves differently. And it all comes down to what has happened in our past, and potentially, someone else whose boss has left. Well, and it could be in the same office as this friend that I talked about. Well, maybe her colleague was promoted last time, his or her boss left. So having this boss leave maybe was a good thing, because that triggered in, his or her mind that, hey, there's opportunity. But for my friend, she saw that as, her life was going to be changing. She doesn't like change. She was happy. And so two very different ways to look at the world. So that's what we're talking about today, is how do we tune our mind to look at these situations and see that, hey, it's not all bad. So I want to back up to, and by no stroke of the imagination am I a history expert. so I do my best to always fact check before we go live. I spend an hour just spending time looking through stats or getting real clear on my message. So I do my best to bring the most factual information, but I would always encourage you to, feel free to fact check me. And if you find that I've said something that, could be enhanced, that, feel free to shoot me a message. But back during World War I and World War II, and I think World War II, I will say, I think a lot of people are most familiar with World War II. It's when Hitler invaded Germany and the entire area, because it spread in more than just Germany. And looking at this on paper, looking at the situation as a whole, and we say, okay, we have a dictator that's gone and built this entire army, and he's going and killing human beings, killing all of the Jews, putting them in concentration camps. And I mean, it's hard to talk about. It's hard to think about. They have Holocaust museums, I'm sure, around the world. And I remember going to the one, I've been many times, down in Washington, D.C., and it's gut wrenching to see the atrocities that have happened. And I think for many people, right now we're going through the same kind of emotions, because the way human life is being treated is just, there's so much dissonance within ourselves in terms of our beliefs. We don't believe that humans should be murdered and should be treated in such a manner. And the Afghans right now, there's a lot of things happening with the women and the children and all of that. And it's just, there's such dissonance within us, and it creates these emotions. And certainly going through the Holocaust Museum, it has that same level of emotion. And it's hard to wrap your head around. I've never experienced anything like this in my life. Now, when I put that aside, and I'm not looking to minimize or diminish or anything, and I 100% do not agree with treating human life this way. So let me just put this as that. But if we just looked at the facts of some of the benefits that came out of World War I, World War II. These were world wars. Like the entire world was involved in rallying together, going into Nazi Germany, going into Austria, going into, to fight this organization, this Nazi organization. And then there was World War I as well. And so when you start to just look at the facts of some of the benefits, so there were the things that happened, but some of the benefits. So, and you and I are reaping them today, whether we know it or not, whether we realize it or not. It's interesting to me. I saw someone post on social media yesterday, and he said, where are all the lunch ladies? Because his kids are in elementary school. I think they're in elementary school, and there's a shortage of staff. And he said, where are the lunch ladies? And he mentioned this a couple of times. And I usually just kind of let things go. But in a cute way, I said, or the lunch men, where are the lunch men? And, and he was like, oh, I didn't, mean to offend or anything like that. And the reason I said something is because if there are men out there that are looking for a job, do they feel like they can go get a job if we are calling that position lunch ladies, lunch ladies, lunch ladies. Well, okay. And I get it. I called them lunch ladies when I was a kid too. That was also 40 years ago. And this is a different world. And as we evolve, as things are changing, stereotypes are changing. And so we have to be at the forefront of making sure that those change. We can't shame men for staying at home with the kids because that's stereotypically a woman's job. We can't do that if we want this thing called equality, which is, yes, what we want. So I saw this lunch ladies. And so I just said something. And then I started to think about it. Stick with me. This is coming full circle. I started to think about it and how far we had come, because 40 years ago, it was lunch ladies. I don't know very many men that were working in a cafeteria feeding kids food. That was typically a woman's role. And it was typically a woman's role to be a nurse. And, one of my close friends is a traveling nurse, and he's very manly and, just very fit. And he could, be in one of those fitness competitions. And so it's definitely not female. And teachers were only female. I mean, if you were a woman at best, and at some point, maybe we didn't even have this opportunity, but you were a teacher, you were a nurse, you definitely raised the kids. Those were your options, and maybe the lunch lady. That was it. And now we can do anything that we want, anything. You can run the country if you want. There are no limitations in terms of what you do. Where did this start to happen when we break it down? It started happening during the war. Why? Because the men were away. Who had to keep everything going? The women. So women slowly but surely started to have this insurgence within the world, especially here in the United States. Our men were away. And so the women had to step up and take over the company, and they had to, become lawyers and doctors. And, they were slowly but surely, they were allowed to go to school and all these things. So I look at the war, and again, although I don't agree with it, I look at how far we've come. And now I just see one little thing called the lunch ladies. And I'm like, wow, we've actually come a long way. Because even in my generation, which I'm not, I'm still young. Even in my generation, we've seen change. But where did they see exponential change? It was going back to early to mid 1900s when the wars were going on. How about Black rights? How about just inclusion of diversity in general? It was during the war. And why? Because we had not just white people. We didn't just have Black people. We didn't just have Asians. It didn't matter. It doesn't matter what color you are. Blue people, purple people. We didn't just have one color, one race. These men and some women were over there, not many, but they were there on the front lines together. I get goosebumps. I just got goosebumps. There is something, and I've never been on the front line, but I did work in Afghanistan for a year. There is something about when you are in a war zone, when you are on a mission together, that the camaraderie that you have with those around you is something that it's hard to explain. There is a closeness that happens because you are looking out for the life of the person next to you, and the person next to you is watching out for you. So all of a sudden, these things that may have once mattered, because we absolutely had segregation here in the United States, 100%. We saw colors. Maybe we still see a little color today. We have definitely made massive strides. I think most of the younger generations don't. I know I don't. But once upon a time, there were definite, one color sits here, another color sits here, one color can sit in front of the bus, another color can sit in the back of the bus. But when you are in war, it's not one color's in the front, one color's in the back. Everybody's there on the front line together. And when something happens, the other people come to save that person or those persons. So guess what? Color doesn't matter. It doesn't. And yes, you and I already know this. But at that time, those were the beliefs, is that skin color mattered and it doesn't matter. And these people that went off to war, that were protecting our country, they had one mission. And that was to save the country. That was to save that was to protect the people and to save one another. And all of a sudden, this idea of color was changed. Wow. Wait, that was my brother that just stood next to me. That was my brother that just saved my life. Oh yeah, but he's a certain color. Yeah, but who cares? Doesn't matter. And so when we look back at these atrocities that have happened within our life, and there are so many of them, but look at what it did for women's rights. We could do anything we want. I can call a man out for saying, hey, lunch lady is kind of a stereotype that maybe we should break. And I can post it on social media. And guess what? He goes, sorry, I didn't mean to offend you. Hello. 100 years ago, I may have been, called a witch and sent to Salem, Massachusetts for being a witch. Who knows? But now it's totally different. And it's because of these things that have happened, these crises, these atrocities that have happened in the past. Look at civil rights. And yes, do we still have room to grow? You know what? There's always, even within women's rights, within color, there's probably always going to be, we always need to stand up. And I don't know what 100 years is going to look like from now, but it may be, we all need to be aware and mindful of it. We don't want history to repeat itself. But when we look at, what has happened with, color, does color exist today? I don't really care what orientation you are. I never grew up with that. I didn't, I never understood that. That wasn't part of my generation. My generation was all inclusive, and I'm from Washington, D.C., and we are a melting pot. I always thought it was really cool to be around these different cultures and, but that stemmed from that inclusion. When you go back, it started with these atrocities. So I hope I've made my point that when a crisis occurs, there is some good that is going to come from it. And you get to choose how you look at the situation. There is no rainbow that shows up without a storm. So whatever storm you are going through, if you tune your mind to say, you know what, there's a rainbow, but you got to look for it. If you're inside your house, you're not going to see that rainbow. The rainbow's not coming inside your house. The rainbow's outside. So you have to actually go out and look for it. That's always looking for the silver lining. That's always looking for the gratitude. It's being present and saying, you know what? I know these things are going on, but I'm also not the creator. And I know that the creator, the higher power, doesn't make any mistakes. So even though it doesn't make sense in my brain, because my brain is only as big as it is, that somebody, some higher power, higher being has a very different perspective and doesn't make any mistakes. So even though I don't understand it at all, I am going to trust that all of this is for the good, and I'm going to seek out the good, and I'm going to tune my mind to looking for those lessons, the silver linings, the gratitude, and I'm going to stay there because that puts me in a better state. Life will not be pushing on me. Life will not be happening to me. I am going to happen to life, and I'm going to do that through the gratitude, through the silver lining, through the lessons, through staying positive, because that's how I choose to stay. So I would love to hear from you if this is a message that has touched your heart, certainly gave me goosebumps. There's always good. We need to tune our mind to that. There are no mistakes in this world as much as we don't understand. And it's hard for us to wrap around our minds around. And I'm not saying that that we shouldn't empathize or go support or be there for one another, because that's what we're here to do. So we need to be those people on the front line for one another, regardless of race and sex and creed. And we're all humans and we're in this together. So I am Jen Sugarmeyer. I'm your host of Mindset in the Morning. We are here 6 days, five days a week, 6 a.m. I get 2 days to sleep in, 5 days a week, 6 a.m. Central Standard Time, but it's YouTube. So you can tune in whenever you would like. If there's a topic that you would like to hear, go out to higherinheels.com and message me there and let me know something that you would like to talk about. I would appreciate if you would subscribe so that we can get this message out to more individuals. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Remember, you get to choose how you show up. So how is it that you want to show up today, and go be that person, go live that